the sikum of the seventh Midah of Yashuv Rachmenu is, remember we went about the hay and the yud, the shape of the hay. And we learned that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when a person does, when Hashem created the world, He created the world with the letter Hey, Ki Bit Ya Hashem Tzur Elamim. The Yud is Olam Haba and the Hey is Olam Haza. And the Hey is like an achsadra. And an achsadra is easy to slip out of, easy to fall out of. You can just wander out of that. But you can always get back in. So the Tomer Devorah, the Gemara explains, the Tomer Devorah expands on the fact, but you can't go in the same way you fell out, because lo yistaya milsa, which there was a chiddush here. I thought the pshat was that what's the point of going back in the same way you fell out? You're just going to fall out again. But apparently no. Like once you fall out, you can't get in that way anymore. So you have. But what can you do? You can do tshuva. So that means you can climb. There's a little spot there on the top of the hay that you can climb up around the left side and fit yourself in. But that's a job. That's already a big job. Like you got to climb, you got to fit in. That's a whole job. So we understand that you can get back in, but tshuva is not an easy thing to do. Although you can do tshuva in a second, which we need to talk about. You can do tshuva in a second, but that doesn't make it easy, I guess. But you can do tshuva quickly, but it does require a deep internal change. And so the deep internal change is symbolized by climbing up not being where everybody else is, but climbing up and fitting yourself in through a different place. But the chiddush here is that once you do that, then you're actually in a different place than everybody else. You're in the top 10% over here. Now you're all the way up on top. And presumably on top of the hay is Olam Haba. This is Olam Haza, that's Olam Haba. So when you do tshuva, you're even higher than if you never did an aver to begin with. Hence, the Malkum Shabbalei Tshuva Domain Sadikim Gemara Mechalim Lamei.
I think of that little leg as a vav, which means you're hooked.
Yeah. Vav means you're hooked. I thought you were going to say something else. The vav is Olam Haba. Or yud. If it's not full vav, it's a yud actually.
The vav is the connection between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba.
But anyways, the limud of the whole thing is, when it comes to Ben Am L'Chaber, I'm just making a sikum.
That's really what it is. It's a yud.
It's a yud, which is Olam Haba.
We write them off in, but it's really just yud.
It's a yud. Be a vav, it might become a ches. Yeah, no, but it is a yud. So it means that there's this like climbing up the side is it's kind of a very spiritual thing, a very Olam Haba thing to do. There was a person who's like, everyone's living inside the hay, but you walk out of the hay. You're walking out of the world. What I'm trying to say is that there's something very interesting about falling out of the hay. That you're no longer part of Olam Haza per se. That could be bad, that could be good. Once you're not part of Olam Haza, you don't have the binding of Olam Haza. It actually could be a very, very great spiritual position to be in. Even though it's a negative thing, it could be a very spiritual position. When a person's sort of down and out, when you're down and out, there's something very open about the person. There's something to talk about, because you don't have all of this, like this gashmius.
You can only go up from there.
You can only go up, but it's more like you've shedded a lot of the baggage. What I mean, I'm not saying something Kabbalistic, I'm just saying a feeling that I have, that, it's very difficult sometimes to talk to them when they're in the middle of a whole gashmiistic world over here. It's very difficult in the middle of a deal, I'm in the middle of this, and this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend, this is my business, this is my boss. I'm very tied up inside the hay until you fall out of the hay. You fall out of the whole hay, And when you fall out of the hole, hey, even if the bad thing to do is to do an avera and fall out of the hole, just slip out of there. But at the same time, you're not tied up in all this stuff over here. So it's a little bit of olam haba, right? A little bit of olam haba, which allows you to climb up. The tachlis is that when it comes to ben am l'chavero, which is where we're going with all this. So we started off by saying that when a person offends me, even if he or she apologizes, and even if I accept the apology, it's not the same as it was. The relationship is not the same. But according to this, meaning you fell out of my hay and that's it, you're out of my world. But at the same time, if the person does tshuva, meaning the person does tshuva, not just apologizes. I know to apologize. So that's a good first step. I mean, in other words, you apologize. That means that that I'm wrong and you're right. Most people don't apologize. I find most people say, "Oh, we had a misunderstanding."
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's not a misunderstanding. You're wrong. I'm right. That's not a misunderstanding. I think I understood everything. Yeah, you understood everything. But let's say a person actually does apologize. So that itself, it doesn't do anything because apologies, rishayim malayim charata. Apologies don't do it per se. But an apology with a program of change, that is something. So if a person does do this apology with a program of change, which we're entitled to demand, even Hashem demands that. We're entitled to demand, okay, but just tell me what you're going to do that this doesn't happen again. Simple as that. You're entitled to ask that. I mean, you don't have to come back into my world, but if you want to get back into my world, I just need to know what's the program here. What are you doing that's different? And but if a person is truly going on a program, so then we have to let them back in. But what's interesting is being godly as we are, you don't let them in the same way it came out. It's not like, okay, well, let's just forget about it, let bygones be bygones. He actually goes in through a different space, and now he's even closer to the top, becomes your best friend. Comes even closer to you than if he didn't do the chet at all. So there's this bechina of makom shabali tshuva im domain sadikim gemur b'chalim lamed sham in a beilam l'chaver also. You're about tshuva by me. If you're about tshuva by me, so it's hard. I mean, just if you give it a thought for a minute of all the people that hurt us in life, if they indeed, have tried to do something to apologize or to correct the situation, then we have this kind of this godly chiyuv to not just accept them back, but even stronger than it was before.
Have you had many people apologize really sincerely in your experience?
No. And even those that apologize sincerely, because people have, I include myself in that. Even people that apologize sincerely don't necessarily embark on a program of change. But I've seen things like I've seen men and women have affairs. It's pretty heavy. It's extremely offensive. Besides for the obvious, besides for the obvious, violation of trust. And trust is a different schmooze. It's a different midah. There's a certain, it's not just trust. There's a certain offense there, and it's very and yes, you see people really have charata for what they did. So that's a big call. That's a tall order for somebody to say, look, take them back in because they're really doing tshuva. So I've seen that apology happen. I don't know, but it's hard. But the thing is that Hashem does it. Hashem does it because we do chatayim. We repeat it over and over and over again. So you do tshuva, that one. But if you go through a program, we expect HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be makabel with tshuva.
The question was, are we expected to really?
Yeah. So that's it. But
not to embark on our own level. I would expect others to accept others.
I guess the first way to think about this is tough. We're already up to the seventh meeting. The first thing about it is, is there anybody that we need to apologize to? That's like the first thing to think of. And then we have to think, well, okay, apologize because I want to straighten out the relationship. There's so much stress to have a difficult relationship, but it's not really, there's no change that takes place. So so the first thing I think about is ourselves, if we have hurt somebody, have we actually changed? It's an important, it's easier just to move to a different place, not see that person. Change shuls. That's like a big one. Just change shuls, I can't do it.
There are rabbis who tell you to do that.
Just change shuls.
Yeah. Get out.
Yeah, but what if you're the rabbi? All right.
It has happened to him, sure.
I always tell you, I thank God I've always been blessed with, almost all good, very good parishioners all the years. Well, especially never, but there was one guy in America, he was like a Russia. He was Messiah. He said, I mean, just talk lashon hara about me, and went to the no, I don't I don't know what it was. Just on and on and on. Just like it was just like real rishis, And I remember it's difficult, because of the difficult thing, but to have somebody be rodeh for you, it's not a good position to be in.
Jealousy.
Right, but when I moved to Eretz Yisrael, not because I moved to Eretz Yisrael, so I remember on the Erev Yom Kippur, so I got a call from this guy. Like, what do you offer me now? I left. What do you So he says to me, look, it's Erev Yom Kippur, and somebody mentioned to me that I may have offended you in some way or another. He was sincere. It was just it's just an unbelievable thing. It offended me. It took years off my life. You wrote it to me. It's just in his mind,
The Rav told us that?
I did, yeah. Didn't do it. No, what I'm saying is, you have to accept such an apology. I told him. But is you have to accept such an apology. Somebody really hurts you, somebody offends you. To accept the apology. But if a person does tshuva, there's such a thing as doing tshuva. If we do tshuva, so then we do have to accept. And not only do we have to accept, but you can come in. I have a door for you in my life. And that door is the top of the hay, where you can fit somehow in there. And you're my top. You're my closest people. You come from my closest people. There's a famous story of I believe it was Rabbi Yisrael Salanter who was on a train. Right? You know the story? He was on a train. There's all stories of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. He was on the go a lot. He was a real near-deaf, by the way. Wherever he went, this is it's like a rabbinic thing. People are rodef Rabbana, but he was thrown out of Vilna.
Wow.
He was thrown out of Vilna, and he went from city to city, and it was there. Well, here is Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the Baal Musar, but somebody really gave him a hard time on the train. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter opened the window, he closed the window, he insulted him. The whole way, 5-6 hours of just abuse, not knowing that it was Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. Then when he got to the place, he got to the place he was going to. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter at that time was the Rav. So he came over and he apologized to him, and Rabbi Yisrael Salanter went through with him. What does that mean to apologize? What does it mean? There's something with your midos here that needs to be corrected. Why were you? I didn't know you were Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. So what? What if I always say, the poor guy comes to the door, you should give him money. Maybe he's Elio Anavi. Maybe he's not. If you're supposed to be nice to people, what does it have to be Elio Anavi for to be nice to them? But anyways, the point was he became a Talmud Muvak of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. So there is a special. There could be, when you think about it, it could be an opening for a very special relationship. The hurt gufa could be a launching pad for a very special relationship.
Can I just return to the story of the Russia?
My Russia, yeah.
Your Russia. Someone calls you Erev Yom Kippur, and clearly you're feeling that his apology or his tshuva, whatever it is, not on the level of the pain that you suffered from this person. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to try and get him to make his, or are you supposed to accept him as shiur?
I didn't accept it as shiur. Meaning I said to him that, look, there was a big offense here. This is what I'll tell you what I did. I think it's right. I said this, it's not so simple at all. It was a very, very big offense. And I told him that I'll be temporarily Michael so that you can get through your kippur. But if you really, no, I really did nothing to hurt him. I wasn't or anybody, I don't think. But I told him that. But if you really want to do something about this, like so, give me a call in a couple of days, and I'm happy to talk to you. Which of course he never did. But he's just trying to get himself, clean. And figure, okay, I'll make the call. I imagine that I get more offended than most people do in the course of a day. I mean, just dealing with a lot of people, but I just, okay, it's difficult. I find it a difficult, the reason I'm plopping about this, it's a very difficult thing to forgive when somebody really hurts you. But at least we know the goal there is that not only forgive, it's not forgive and forget, it's if the person is indeed doing tshuva, so then you got to let them back in, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets us back in when we do tshuva, and then when you let them back in, so now they're about tshuva. So about tshuva is on a higher madrega than a tzaddik.
Should we be offending the rope to get closer to the rope?
It's not necessary.
Not necessary. I'm sorry to offend you.
Yeah, no, there is some kind of dynamic there. It's a very interesting thing. Someday I'll write. It will be one of those books that I'm going to write. I was going to put out a book of all the title pages of the books that I want to write. I think it'll be interesting. Just title pages, like about 200 title pages.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Books that will never happen. Okay, now let's just do. That was difficult. Ches is a little bit more difficult. Yichbosh avonosenu. I want to get back to that at some point, but let's just go a little bit further. Yichbosh avonosenu. Yichbosh avonosenu. That's the next two words in the pasuk. So what does it mean that Hashem takes our averos and yichbosh? What does that mean?
Conquers.
Okay, and what does that mean? How do you conquer an avera? We're supposed to conquer our averos. Hashem conquering our.
Comes in.
Takes over.
Like buries it under the ground, kind of thing. So it's no.
What's
doesn't
the word?
exist
The word. The root word is what?
like a road. Like,
Kavash is crushed.
Yeah.
Kavash is crush. Kavash is.
Pavers. To pave.
Is it? Like a kvish.
Yeah.
Like a kvish to smooth everything out.
Like what we do for olives.
That's what a road is. It smooths everything out.
Also kvisha for olives, right? We do like olive pickles, it's called kvisha also.
That means to pickle,
Right.
not to crush. Kvushim are not crushed.
Kavush. That's kavush.
Kavush, kimavush. Right. So kavush, same word. So I think what a kavush means, I think you should stifle. What kavush actually means is when you stifle something's growth. In other words, you take you stop it from growing worse. See, it's an important thing to know that, like, if you have a peach and the peach gets ripe, so you eat it, it's geschmack. If it gets more ripe, it's soft. If it gets too ripe, it's rotten. So it's actually what it's doing is getting better and better until the point you can't eat it. Okay? That's really what's happening. So there's in the pre-refrigeration days, it was very important to learn how to pickle things, because how are you going to stop it from keeping on ripening more and more? So the answer is you pickle it. So if you pickle it, you've stifled everything in it that allows it to. That was a bimkom. That's why Jews eat herring, etc. That's like there was no refrigeration, and you have to eat basar v'dagim v'chol matamim. So we got down to corned beef and herring. That's our Jewish, That's why everything's pickle. So now, how do you pickle a chet? Let's think about it. Yichbosh. I mean, maybe conquering also comes from that idea, but I don't think the ikar of kavash is to conquer. I think just in military terms, when you what's the word? Neutralize. You neutralize the enemy. So in military terms, so that's your kovesh. So that's a conquering.
Dead.
You do what?
Neutralize means dead.
Oh. That's one way of doing it.
No offense there.
Yeah. But that's not what it means. To neutralize means you're no longer dangerous. Right? You're no longer dangerous.
Measure to conquer.
Therefore to conquer, and therefore to conquer. So okay, so let's get tachlis. What's kovesh achet? He, Hashem, is kovesh avonoseinu. What does it mean? So
He stops us before we get even worse.
stops us, or stops avonoseinu?
Stops our
Stops the chet.
before it gets worse.
So let's read a sentence or two. Arei HaKadosh Baruch Hu misnaig im Yisrael b'midah zu. This is how Hashem handles things. He soid vishas oven. We are now going to learn the secret of pickling the sin. Recipe. Kihine. Let's see what we can make of this. Kihine. Ha-mitzvah hi keparachas olsa nitza. When you do a mitzvah, Lashon of the Zohar actually. When you do a mitzvah, it's like a plant that's blossoming. It means you put the seed in the ground, and out comes the plant, and it blossoms, and it gets taller and taller and taller. Right? So when you do a mitzvah, you've planted something very beautiful, but it doesn't show as beautiful, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, Jack and the beanstalk, right? It gets tremendously. So Parachas also nitza. Ubokeya, and it breaks through. Va'ole, and it rises up. Ad ein tachlis, without any type of limitation. Lichnais lefanav yisparach. So what an amazing idea. You do a mitzvah, right? Somebody needs some help, you give them 100 shekel. They have some food. A real mitzvah. You do a real mitzvah. So when you do that mitzvah, so okay, I forgot about it an hour later. Not that big of a deal. No, you've planted a seed, and the seed now breaks through the earth, and long after you forget about it, it keeps on growing and growing and growing, and goes lefanav yisbarach. So there's a you're doing something very limited and very physical, but its effect is eternal. Its effect is infinity. It keeps on growing. It's like a really good investment, yeah. Like a really good investment is you put a couple of shekels in the bank and you can forget about it, but it keeps on growing and growing and growing. All of a sudden you got a lot of money. Yeah? So that's Kepairachas also nitza. Uboikeya va'oila ad ein tachlis lichnois lefanav yisparach. Amnam, same thing should be true with an avera. Person does an avera, you hurt somebody. So my case, the Russia. So you hurt somebody. So when you hurt the person, so it doesn't end there. You've also planted a weed, and this weed is growing and growing and growing, and it's also coming l'chora in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amnam ha'avonos ein lahem knisa sham. Amazing miracle. That even though the fruit of the mitzvah, peiros of the mitzvah, and we find that lashon always oichel peiros, karen kayemes olam haba. You find this idea that the fruit, the main place of the fruit, maybe you can nosh one or two on the way, but basically the fruit are in shamayim, schar mitzvah b'hayal maleka. When it comes to averos, it doesn't, ein lo knisa, ein lem knisa sham, chas v'shalom. Elakosha, they're stifled. Shelo yikansu. Kedesiv, it says in Tilim, lo yigurcha ra. Lo yagur b'mgurcha ra. Lo yigurcha ra, the Gemara says, means that the ra does not enter into the place of tov. Now, we have to know that there's such a thing as charvonis, right? So, what do you mean it doesn't end up into the place of tov? But this is just reading the words over here. Im kain ein ha'avoin nichnas penima. Penima. The avon remains external. Umitamzeh, it's because of the positive part of this, that schar mitzvah b'hayal maleka. Because the main place that the fruit grows is on top of the tree. And the top of the tree is in Shamayim. Mipnei shehem lefanav yisparach. How are you going to eat the fruit of your mitzvahs in this world if they're in Shamayim? Ve'ech yiten lo yimashal ufanav schar ruchani b'olam gashmi. They're altogether spiritual, eternal things. It doesn't even fit into this world. The schar of a mitzvah doesn't even fit into this world. So how can you take something ruchani and put it into the world of gashmi? Harei kol ha'olam eino kedai l'mitzvah achas. U'kodesh ruach asher l'chodav. Or what are you going to do? You did a mitzvah, so what's going to happen? Okay, you get to go to Hawaii. It's not an equal payment. Not to be mistaken with the benefit package, because we do say Shema v'yasafta degonecha v'siroshka v'tzarecha. That's not schar mitzvah. That's already benefits. The benefits are the things will work better for you. You'll have a greater access to hashgacha pratis. You'll have more bracha in your life. None of that's schar. Because that's all the things anything you get in this world is limited. The most unlimited, most eternal thing we could have is children. That's Hashem that keeps on going, but even that's limited. So the bracha is what you can have from this world is bracha. On the other hand, see, you find Rishayim get schar for their mitzvahs in this world. That's an interesting thing. Why?
So to be paid here instead of...
Right, because so Rashi says those are that's mitzvah shaloi lishma. That's only talking about mitzvah shaloi lishma. Mitzvah shaloi lishma gets some schar in this world. It does get schar in this world. It's like, yeah, but he's such a nice guy. Like, he really does some good stuff. Good. But if he's a Rasha, he's a Rasha. So if he's a Rasha, so this is complicated, sophisticated stuff.
Is this same thing for the Averos? This should be from Shah.
Harei kol ha'olam eino kedai l'mitzvah achas l'kodesh ruach asher levado. Mitam zeh, so that's the good news, I guess, that your investment of a mitzvah keeps on growing and growing and growing in the ever after. Mitam zeh, this is the bad news. Lo yikach shochad shel mitzvahs. At the same time, if a person does an aveira, you can't give a Kadosh Baruch Hu throw him a mitzvah, and that takes care of the aveira. You hear that? Like, let's say you do an aveira. Let's say you kill somebody. So okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an orphanage. So if there's such a thing as tshuva, but if you're just trying to be nice, right? It's like you do something wrong, so you buy the person a gift. That's not tshuva. That's just
ameliorating. Ameliorating.
Yeah. I'm trying to shochat. It's a shochat. I'm just bribing somebody. Okay, I know you're upset with me. Here's a gift. It's not tshuva. People take shochat. I mean, in other words, Torah tells us that we're not above shochat as individuals. Shochat works. Don't make any mistakes. Shochat works. But Hakadosh Baruch Hu doesn't take shochat. So when a person does an aveira, it's not going to help you to do a mitzvah. You have to do tshuva. Because a mitzvah, the schar is already in olam haba. It's a different cheshbon. You do a mitzvah, that's an olam haba. It's not going to help you for the aveira that you did. So that's why let me just say pshat. The Rambam says that a person should always see themselves as half mitzvahs, half aveiros. Like, you're just in a very, very tight balance there. And you have to weigh down one side. So it says Yasa tshuva. The Rambam says you should do tshuva, and you're weighing down, then you become a tzaddik. So the Kesef Mishnah, everybody asks, why do you have to do tshuva? If you have exactly if you're looking at yourself mechsa al mechsa, this amount of mitzvah, this amount of averos, we have to do tshuva. Do any mitzvah, right? Just put a shekel in tzedakah, and boom, you've knocked it over. So the answer is that doesn't work, because what you have to do is not add. I mean, in other words, the tshuva is truly changing the balance. Just another mitzvah is just a shochat. To really change the balance, you need to change. You need to change. Okay, so I'm not sure I understand this, but I just want to say the words before I try to explain it. So mitam zeh lo yikach shochat shel mitzvahs. Hashem can't take a shochat from mitzvah. A mashal b'zeh. So here's the mashal to try to explain this. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer. Hashem does not say asay arboim mitzvah. Asa arboim mitzvah. So a person did 40 mitzvahs ve'eser averos. and 10 averos. Nisharu, so what you have is shloshim mitzvahs. V'yelchu eser ba'eser. There. Hashem does not say that. Chas v'sholom. Ela afilu tzadik gamur v'asa aver achas daim elufanav ki lusaraf es haTorah. The avera doesn't go away because he did 10 mitzvahs, 100 mitzvahs, so it doesn't cancel each other out.
Doesn't know the value of each one.
Yeah, also. But Hashem knows the value. But even so, it doesn't, Ad shiratza choyvoi, v'afkach yikabel schar kol mitzvaysa. So you have to pay your dues, and then you can get the schar. So let's just try to sum this up here to understand this a little bit. Well, what he's saying is, yichbosh avonosenu. We're saying a couple of things over here. But let's go to the end. The end is that if I have a relationship with someone, so the good and the bad of the other person doesn't and shouldn't cancel itself out, right? In other words, what's sinas chinam? Like, who hates somebody for nothing? It's just stupid. Why would you hate somebody for nothing? But the pshat is that sinas chinam is if you really dislike something about the person, so then psychologically you build a case against the person. And all of a sudden, like, everything they say is bad. Everything they do, look the way he walks. Disgusting. Boy, where's the hat? Like, ridiculous, Why is he wearing a tie? Everything's bad. Nothing wrong. Like, if you like the person, so you'd say, oh, that's a nice tie. Unique. But when you hate a person, so the hate, so that's the sinas chinam. Sinas chinam is that when you let the bad cancel out the good. So a person is not it's not like a mathematical thing over here. So every person, let's assume, just trying to understand that every person has good and bad. Agree? I don't think there's anybody that's completely bad. I don't know, I haven't met anybody completely bad. Almost. They're not completely bad. Yeah. They also haven't met so many people that are completely good. Everybody has some kind of a thing. So the pshat is that, but the mind, it's easier to just let the person say the person's either a tzaddik, and then we make up all kinds of stories of why that wasn't really bad, or we say the person's a rasha, and we make up all kinds of stories why that wasn't really good. So that's not the derech, right? That's not the derech. It's not Hashem's derech. Hashem's derech is this is what you did good, or this is what you did bad, and they don't cancel each other out. Is that a madrega to hold in? Is it possible to really dislike a person and yet like a person? Or do we need to make them all bad? So one of the things I hate about politics is that it's all good and bad. Like it's all good and bad. It's one of the things I can't. I'm saying even the Rishoyim out there. I mean, they do a lot of good things for the Jewish people. I think. I don't know. I'm not such a politician, but l'chora, I remember somebody was talking once about, again, I don't know anything about politics, but I just heard a story that I heard from my father-in-law, that he was around in those days. Somebody was talking to Rabbi Cutler about the evils of Ben Gurion. Okay, there's Yeshmael Haber. But Rabbi Cutler said, lost him up. Does a lot of good things too. Self. So it's a very difficult. It's very difficult to do this because psychologically we need to paint you either you're bad or you're good. Like this is what we do. You're bad or you're good. You're a bad person. Yeah. Like that's what we do. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't do that, so we shouldn't do that. Okay, that's one point. What it means is that let's go back to the Ruchnius part of it. I'm just giving a mashal. What it means is that the averos stand alone and the mitzvahs stand alone, and they don't cancel each other out. People don't cancel themselves out, and we don't cancel ourselves out in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Elamai, mitzvahs is one cheshbon, and averos is another cheshbon. So you can't take a shochad. If you're taking a shochad, that means, what does a shochad mean? A shochad means that I'm mixing up, right? What happens when a judge takes a bribe? I'm mixing up the good and the bad over here. Like, okay, very nice. Thank you for the shochat. I appreciate that very much. But I have to. What's wrong is wrong, and I have to prosecute you on this, right? Am I right? You're in this business, aren't you?
Yeah. I used to be.
Yeah. So a bribe, if you think about it, is like a short circuit between, and it messes up my brain, because what's happening is now I'm listening good where it's bad. So there's the big, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't take shochat. What's good is good, and what's bad is bad. So now, that's Yisoid Aleph, very important. We should be that way, Hashem should be that way. This is one thing, this is another thing, good is good and bad is bad.
Can't do a mitzvah with Navera.
Mitzvah ba ba'aver.
Right.
Very good. Right? Mitzvah ba ba'aver doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Mitzvah. Now that they're two different things, what happens? That's point one. So that we can understand. Another thing is that mitzvahs keep on growing and growing and growing in spite of the averos that I might be doing. So it means to say that that it doesn't help me. The famous story of the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon, I think that's what this is. The Vilna Gaon, used to do these self-imposed exiles. I think it was business. Ostensibly, what he was doing was looking for. This was in the post-shop site Tzvi era. So he was actually looking for original manuscripts. He was the expert of the generation. Besides for being the Gaon, he was an expert in manuscripts. So he wanted to. So that's why most of the Hagoyis Hagra are changing girsas and Rashi and Tosfos girsas Hagra. So even in the Shulchan Aruch girsas Hagra. So the way he would do that is that so many manuscripts got messed up in the time of Shop Site Tzvi because they were trying to revise history and revise halacha, so that he was the one who was in charge, Kilu, of making sure everything is getting put back on track, which was why it was so important for the Hasidim to have his recognition, because they didn't want to go into the Shop Site Tzvi camp, which is all related to what we're saying, the good and the bad. So two things. Number one is that just a small story. The Vilna Gaon is he would go out of Vilna. He said, "I'm not a Rav out of Vilna," and he didn't have to act like a Rav. So he would go, and he wouldn't tell people where he were, and if he would tell people, they probably wouldn't know who he was, and there was no internet. So how do they know who he was? So he would go to places. So he once was stuck at Arab Shabbos, well-known story, that his son, Rabbi Avram, told the story that he heard from his father, that he was stuck on Arab Shabbos someplace, and he knocked on a door, and it was a Jewish family, but completely not Shomer Shabbos enough. And so he said, "Can I stay here for Shabbos?" So the person sees it from Jew. Says, "You can stay here for Shabbos, but you're not gonna have too much halah. We're Bachal Shabbos, so we treif, and we don't care about it." So there was a time in the maskilim and all. So he says, "Okay, he'll make do. He has a little bit of food. He'll make do." Anyways, they sat down. The one thing that he had was kosher, was the bread. So the Vilna Gaon said, let's break bread together. Okay. So the Vilna Gaon said to him, "So go wash." So the fellow started to laugh. Wash. My next course is going to be ham and eggs. Like what am I wash? So the Vilna Gaon said to him that eating treif in the second course doesn't pater you from washing the Til Yadayim on the first course. There's no such p'tur. So it's a very interesting thing. Like it means to say that the good is the good and the bad is the bad. Like if this is something easy for you to do, you go wash the Til Yadayim. You did a mitzvah, so do the mitzvah. Like we're not going to say, "Oh, you're a Russia," You're not to mention he was Machnus Earth, right? But so a Russia's a Russia, and in this you could do a mitzvah. So that's like something. No, but it's an illustration of this. I don't know if he means chesed b'tshuva, but I just tell you the story. I don't know. No, the Glenn wasn't a Hasidic rabbi. And he became the Buddhist disciple. Right. No, it's tough, like an interesting story. But I want to tell you a story which is more profound, in my opinion, and that is that the ultimate story was, in all of this, the Vilna Gaon put the Hasidim in cherem. That was his decision. His decision was that it was too close to Sapsite-Siyism, and he didn't think, he said it could be bad and it could come out even worse, and next thing you know, they're going to be worshiping the Rebbes, and it's going to be Avodah Zarah and all that. That's what he said, you know. Apparently he even said that, you know, it wouldn't even surprise him if one of in other words, he said it's a messianic movement. It's a messianic movement which he felt was very dangerous to Vilna Gaon. I mean, Einstein times 10, so like, he understood what he understood. No, you know, I'm not commenting on current events, I'm just saying that's what it is. But anyways, when the Hasidim heard that they put him in Cherem, so the Balatanya and the Mazritcher Magid, his Rebbe, came to see the Vilna Gaon. Famous thing. They came to see the Vilna Gaon to try to discuss with him and to speak to him about, you know, to show them who they were and what they were. And they dafka took the Balatanya because from all the Rebbes, he was the biggest Talmud Chacham, and like he would impress the Gaon the most, and he was. Rav Shulchan Aruch, he was. So they came. And this is the part of the story, that part of the story everybody knows. They came, and the Vilna Gaon opened the door for them and saw them standing there, and then he slammed the door in their face, and he ran out, jumped out the window in the back, and ran away. They didn't know what happened, they were there, and he came back. That was one of his gullies. Didn't come back for a couple of weeks until they would leave. He wanted to make sure they would leave. So that's the story everybody knows about the Vilna Gaon, and you know, people like to say that if he would have only opened the door, Mashiach would have come. Like that's what the Hasidim like to say. You know, okay, that's the story. I heard. I might have mentioned here once. I once heard. You could listen to it too. It's on a tape on the internet. Rav Soloveitchik. Rav Soloveitchik was a guest speaker. Interesting. Soloveitchik is a really brisker name, right? So Rav Soloveitchik was a speaker in Boston at the Chabad House on Yud-Tes Kislev. Like it. It's like like nails on a blackboard. So he said, you could hear this shmooze that he gives.
He was very close with Lubavitcher.
Yeah. But he was still, so they were close from the university. I think they went to university together. Anyway, so he said that
They went to the Sorbonne together, didn't they?
Berlin, I think maybe University of Berlin. Okay, but yes, they were close. It's very interesting that well, just while we're here, Rav Soloveitchik went, I think, once to from Bregnan of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and sat up in front right next to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said he had two things at the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He had like sichos that he gave, which were, you know, very important shiur, and then he had maimarim, which were Hasidic discourses, very hard to understand. The truth is, it was like really on a level of, so the maimarim of all the Lubavitcher Rebbe's became Hasidus. That is Hasidus. It's not the sichos, it's the maimarim which are the Hasidus. It comes with the special niggin at the beginning, and everyone stands up when the Rebbe says the maimer. It's like a real, it was a big, I've been there many times, like you stand up at attention and you listen and you don't understand a word of what he's saying. That's the minhag of the thing. So he said a maimer, and Rav Soloveitchik stood up also and listened to the maimer, and when he left, so he told his talmidim, he left, and then the Rebbe walked him out even. It was a very beautiful, never happened such a thing, like the Rebbe actually walked him to the door. He left it like in the middle of the February. It was late, it was already like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, he walked him out after this maimer. So they analyzed this afterwards, that the Rav Soloveitchik had just, I believe this just came out with his book, Halachic Man. And he poses a number of very, very deep theological questions with a bunch of issues. And the Maimer was kilu like a Hasidic take on the whole Halachic Man, page by page. It's amazing stuff. What went on? So there's like you can get this. You can get Halachic Man with the Pirush of the Rebbe, like explaining why the issues aren't even issues if you take the whole thing to a different oilam. Rav Soloveitchik apparently got it because he walked out like, wow, goodness. So he understood the message, but nobody else did. It took years and years until this kind of secret thing, came out. But Rav Soloveitchik said this is the point I want to make. Rav Soloveitchik said at this Yutes Kislev Farbrengen, he said that this is the story that everybody knows. They came to the door, the Mezur Magid and the Balatanya, and the going closed the door. But now I'm going to tell you the real story. And how do I know it's the real story? He says, because I heard it from my mother, who never told me something that wasn't true, he said, and she heard it from her mother. Her mother goes right back to the Vilna Gaon. The story goes right back to the Vilna Gaon. So what was the knetch? The knetch was that when the Vilna Gaon saw them, the Mezur Magid and the Balatanya, he looked at them and they looked like such tzaddikim that he knew that the Hadras Panim alone, he was so taken with the Hadras Panim that they had, that he knew he would not be able to have a proper discussion with them, a proper argument with them, and convince them that they were wrong. So he ran away. So how could this be? This is a steer b'nei obey. They had such Hadras Panim, they were such tzaddikim. So why are you calling them Rishayim? What's the? I didn't call them Rishayim anyway. Why do you put them in Chayrim? So the answer is that he knew the human limitation of what's good is good, what's bad is bad, and he wasn't going to fall into the trap. I believe he wasn't going to fall into the trap of saying, what are they? They're just like no. The avodas Hashem is the avodas Hashem, and the Hadras Panim is the Hadras Panim, and the wrong days are the wrong days, and the dangerousness of this is the dangerous of this, and the two things have to be split aside. And he wasn't, let me use a strong word, he wasn't going to be bribed by the Hadras Panim. He wasn't going to be bribed by the Hadras Panim. So this is salvation we heard from his mother. So it's just an amazing ability to be able to analyze each part of something in its own way. So this is a godly thing. The godly thing is what's good is good and what's bad is bad. That's the first step. What's good is good and what's bad is bad. And you can't mix up. The bad doesn't make the good bad, and the good doesn't make the bad good. So the two things have to. This, and here you have it all at the 2-inch opening in the doorway of the Vilna Gaon. That from his point of view, the good doesn't make the bad good, and the bad doesn't make the good bad. So there was nothing to do with this. So therefore, he ran away. That was that's the Masorah, the brisker Masorah of the story. So the Nakuta here is, so let's just leave it with this until we get to understanding the next time. I'm not sure, here's the Tzarechim, something to think about. I'm not sure what it means, we still don't know what it means, Yichbosh Avonoseinu. We understand that the good goes the good and the bad is the bad, and that's what he goes on to say. But what is this idea that the good sprouts a flower and it goes straight into Shamayim, but the bad, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't let into the Shamayim. Well, why not? There is karva in it. So let it in a separate place. So that's what we need to discover and understand here in Hashem on not Wednesday but Thursday. Thursday at 8:45.
What's the concept that what's the concept that if you do tshuva, it turns your averos into mitzvos?
Right. And therefore,
there's
because you've changed.
You've changed.
Right. So I was speaking about that on Shabbos, that the Bears become into mitzvahs because that's what you got to bring to the table, the experience of the Bears. But that would help explain this, I think. I didn't.